In the blood-soaked streets of Naples, a place where mob bosses rule with iron fists, the most feared leader wasn't a man. They called her La Madrina, the godmother. This is the story of Maria Licciardi, a woman in a man's world who rose to command a powerful alliance of 20 Mafia clans and became the mastermind behind a billion-dollar criminal empire. She was so small in stature that she earned the nickname La Piccolina, or the Little One, but her reputation was anything but. To really get how this woman shattered the highest glass ceiling in organized crime, you first have to understand the world that made her, the chaotic, violent, and uniquely Neapolitan world of the Camorra. When most of us think of the Italian mob, we picture the Sicilian Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, that world of rigid hierarchies, ancient codes, and iconic godfathers we've all seen in the movies. But Naples is different. Its criminal underworld is ruled by the Camorra, a sprawling, horizontal network of clans that's older, bigger, and far more chaotic than its Sicilian counterpart. The Camorra isn't a neat pyramid of power. It's a hydra, a constantly shifting tangle of families and alliances, each controlling its own turf. They fight, they make fragile truces, and they bleed for control of everything from drug trafficking and extortion to rigging public works contracts. At the heart of this storm is Secondigliano, a dense, sprawling suburb in northern Naples. For decades, this wasn't just another neighborhood, it was a kingdom. It was the stronghold of the Licciardi clan, a family whose name was whispered with a mix of respect and fear. The family was woven into the very fabric of the Camorra. Their patriarch was a respected local boss, and his children were born into the life. In this world, sons were destined to become soldiers and bosses. Daughters were expected to play a very different, but no less critical, role. Traditionally, the women of the Camorra are the glue that holds the organization together. They are the wives, mothers, and sisters who maintain the family structure, who instill the clan's values in their children, pass messages to their men in prison, and uphold the sacred code of silence, the omerta. They are the keepers of the flame, but they are not supposed to wield it. Their power is indirect, used from the shadows. The idea of a woman giving orders, leading men into battle, and running a criminal empire wasn't just unconventional, it was unthinkable. But the streets of Naples are unforgiving. And when tradition runs up against a power vacuum, something has to give. And in the 1990s, the Licciardi clan was about to face a crisis that would tear up the old rulebook and clear the way for a queen. Section 1. Early life and entry into the mob. Maria Licciardi was born in 1951. Most sources say March 24th, right into the heart of the Secondigliano underworld. For her, crime wasn't a choice. It was her birthright. Her father was a man of local power, and her brothers, especially Gennaro Licciardi, were destined for big things in the Camorra. Gennaro, known as Asigna, the monkey, was a charismatic and ambitious leader. He clawed his way up the ranks during the brutal Camorra wars of the 70s and 80s, eventually making the Licciardi clan a dominant force. Maria, like other women in her position, lived the life she was told to. She married a fellow Camorrista, Antonio Tegemia, and had a child, doing her duty within the patriarchal system. In those early years, she was known mostly as La Piccolina, the Little One, because of her small, unassuming frame. She was respected because she was a Licciardi, which earned her the title La Principessa, or the Princess, among other women. But no one saw her as a real player. She operated in the traditional female sphere, managing the house, raising her child, and supporting the family's men. She was on the inside. She saw the clan's business, but she was always kept on the edge of real power. A former mobster who became a state witness, a pentito, later described the vital role women like Maria played long before she ever took command. He testified that the Secondigliano women took on all sorts of jobs on behalf of the alliance. They took messages to prisoners, distributed money to members, and organized activities. In other words, they constitute the backbone of the organization. Maria learned the business from the inside out. She understood the flow of money, the communication networks, and the complex web of loyalties and betrayals that held the Camorra together. She was a quiet student in the most brutal business school on earth. While Maria was learning, her brother Gennaro was building an empire. Realizing that constant war was bad for business, he forged a game-changing coalition in the early 1990s. Along with the powerful bosses Edoardo Contini and Francesco Malado, he created the Secondigliano Alliance. This strategic federation of clans pooled resources, carving up territories and rackets to maximize profits and minimize bloodshed. The alliance came to dominate drug trafficking, extortion, and cigarette smuggling across Naples, turning Secondigliano into the absolute nerve center of Neapolitan crime. Gennaro was the king, the head of both his clan and the alliance, but his reign was about to come to a sudden, shocking end. Section 2. The seizure of power. The world Gennaro had so carefully built came crashing down in 1994. The architect of the clan's power, Gennaro the Monkey Licciardi, died in prison from a sudden illness. His death left a gaping wound at the top of the organization. The stability of the Secondigliano alliance, which was built on his personal authority, was instantly threatened. With the king dead, the vultures started circling. Rival clans saw a chance to grab territory, and factions within the alliance jostled for control. The crisis got worse as the Italian state cracked down. Right after Gennaro's death, Maria's other brothers, Pietro and Vincenzo, were arrested, along with her husband, Antonio. In a flash, all the powerful men of the Licciardi clan were either dead or behind bars. The clan was decapitated, leaderless, and exposed. According to the old rules, power should have passed to a male cousin or a trusted lieutenant. But these were desperate times. The clan, facing total collapse, turned to the one person who had the brains, the name, and the nerve to hold it all together: the quiet, unassuming, little one, Maria. Her rise was revolutionary. In a world where women were treated like property or support staff, Maria Licciardi took the throne. She became the first female boss of the Licciardi clan and, as a result, a hugely influential and strategic leader at the head of the Secondigliano alliance. This wasn't a symbolic role. She wasn't just keeping the seat warm for an imprisoned husband. Police and former mobsters all confirmed that Maria became the undisputed leader. One informant testified that talking to Maria was the same as talking to her brother Gennaro had been. She took direct command, and what she did next would not only save her family's empire, but expand it beyond what even her brother had imagined. Her first challenge was to stop the bleeding. The alliance, that coalition of about 20 hot-headed clans, was about to explode into a new war. But where others saw chaos, Maria saw an opportunity. She immediately called meetings with the other bosses. Using her deep understanding of Camorra politics and a natural gift for diplomacy, she made a simple, powerful case. Fighting each other was a waste of men and money. Unity, she argued, was the key to making them all richer. She wasn't just her brother's sister, she was his strategic successor. She had what one insider called a steely charisma, and the hardened, skeptical male bosses actually listened. They agreed to keep the alliance together, not out of respect for tradition, but out of respect for her sharp, calculating mind. Maria Licciardi had stabilized the empire. Now, she would make it her own. She was no longer La Principessa, she was La Madrina, the godmother. Section 3. The Reign of La Madrina. With the Second Iliano alliance under her command, Maria Licciardi began a reign that would reshape the Neapolitan underworld. She wasn't just a caretaker, she was an innovator, a CEO of crime who brought a new level of sophistication and ruthlessness to the Camorra. Investigators would later call her practical, charming, exceptionally intelligent, but just as ruthless as her male counterparts. Her leadership was a paradox. She avoided the flashy lifestyle of male godfathers, preferring to run things from the shadows, yet her control was absolute. Under her watch, the alliance's core businesses thrived. The extortion rackets, the pizzo, were systematized, guaranteeing a steady river of cash from businesses across their territories. Drug trafficking, the engine of the alliance, was professionalized. Second Iliano became one of Europe's biggest open-air drug markets, a grim supermarket where everything from cocaine to heroin was sold with brutal efficiency. Licciardi wasn't just managing the empire her brother built. She was making it more organized, more secretive, and far more powerful. But her most significant and darkest innovation was a total break from Camorra tradition. The Camorra had long held an unwritten rule against profiting from prostitution, seeing it as dishonorable. Maria Licciardi, with cold, business-first pragmatism, shattered that code. She saw a market to be exploited and went after it with merciless precision. The Licciardi clan got into the human trafficking business on an industrial scale. Their model was monstrous. The clan would buy young women, many of them underage, from the Albanian Mafia for about $2,000 each. These women were lured to Italy with false promises of jobs, only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. As soon as they arrived, they were systematically broken. The clan forced them to use heroin, creating an addiction that served as a chemical chain. Once hooked, they were forced into sex work on the streets of Naples. Their earnings went straight to the clan, with just enough spent on the very drugs that kept them enslaved. It was a self-sustaining cycle of misery, and it was incredibly profitable. This one decision showed the true nature of La Madrina's rule. Tradition and honor meant nothing when profit was on the line. Her reputation was cemented during a crisis that almost tore the alliance apart. A big shipment of heroin arrived from Istanbul, but it was tainted. It was too pure or cut improperly, and it was lethal. As it hit the streets, users started dying, and their families grew angry. This wasn't just a business problem, it was a crisis. In the Camorra world, selling a bad product that kills your customers is an insult that usually leads to a bloody war. Other bosses might have responded with violence, silencing anyone who complained. Maria's response was a masterclass in criminal politics. She didn't deny responsibility. Instead, she ordered the alliance to immediately stop selling the tainted batch and publicly offered to pay compensation to the families of the victims. This wasn't an act of compassion, it was a cold, strategic move. It calmed the anger, prevented a war, and reinforced her image as a responsible leader who took care of her territory. She had turned a disaster into a public relations victory, solidifying her authority over the other clans. For years, Maria Licciardi ruled like a ghost in the machine. While other bosses built monuments to their egos, she remained nearly invisible, directing her vast criminal network from a series of secret hideouts. While she was on the run, police raided one of her suspected safe houses. Inside an unassuming building, guarded by cameras, they found an attic she had converted into a lavish command center, complete with marble floors, a grand piano, and a jacuzzi. She was living like a queen, but a queen in hiding. But no reign lasts forever, and the Italian state, armed with new anti-mafia laws, was slowly closing the net around the most powerful woman in Naples. Section 4. The Downfall. By the turn of the millennium, Maria Licciardi was one of the most powerful crime bosses in Italy, but she was also one of its most wanted fugitives. The state placed her on its top 30 most wanted list, and her face was known to every cop in the country. For years, she moved like a ghost through the dense streets of Naples, protected by the clan's network of lookouts and the deep-rooted code of silence in her community. Even as a fugitive, she continued to run the alliance, allegedly ordering hits and directing strategy from the shadows. Her ability to evade capture became the stuff of legend, earning her the nickname the Scarlet Pimpernel of Italy from local journalists. But in June 2001, her luck finally ran out. Acting on a tip, police stopped a car near Naples and found the godmother inside. She reportedly didn't resist, facing the officers with the same cool calm that had defined her reign. Her first chapter as a free woman was over. Maria Licciardi was convicted of mafia-related crimes and sent to prison. For 8 years, she was held in a high-security facility. But even from behind bars, her influence was still felt. She allegedly continued to help direct the clan's activities, with her brother Vincenzo running operations on the outside. Then, in December 2009, having served her time, Maria Licciardi walked out of prison. To the authorities, she was a 58-year-old woman who had paid her debt. But to the Secondiliano alliance, the godmother was home. She wasted no time getting back to business. The criminal world had changed, but her authority hadn't. She slipped right back into her role as the strategic leader, overseeing the alliance's massive portfolio of criminal enterprises. For over a decade, she once again operated while staying off the police's radar, a testament to her discipline and the loyalty she commanded. She was older, but just as sharp. Her final downfall came, as it so often does for fugitives, while she was on the move. In August 2021, a 70-year-old Maria Licciardi walked into Rome's Ciampino airport. She was checking in luggage for a flight to Spain, reportedly to visit her daughter. But anti-mafia police had been watching her. They were not going to let the godmother slip through their fingers again. As she stood at the check-in counter, officers surrounded her. Once again, reports noted that she didn't bat an eyelash as they slapped the warrant in her hands. The image of the small, elderly woman being led away by armed officers was a stunning end to her long and violent career. The charges were familiar: mafia association, extortion, and receiving illicit funds. This time, there would be no quick comeback. Conclusion: the legacy of La Madrina, her 2021 arrest, was truly the end of an era. In March 2023, an Italian court sentenced Maria Licciardi to 12 years and 8 months in prison. The conviction was celebrated as a huge victory for the state. The godmother, now in her 70s, will likely spend the rest of her life behind bars. Maria Licciardi's legacy is a complicated and bloody one. She was a ruthless crime boss who built an empire on drugs, extortion, and the brutal exploitation of women. She waged wars that left scores dead and ruled her turf with a mix of calculated generosity and pure violence. And yet her story is one of a kind in the history of organized crime. She shattered the ultimate glass ceiling in one of the most violent and patriarchal societies on Earth. She wasn't just a stand-in or a figurehead. She was a true boss of bosses, whose strategic mind and iron will earned her the fear and respect of her male rivals. Her story even bled into popular culture. The famous anti-mafia journalist Roberto Saviano confirmed that Licciardi was a key inspiration for the powerful, chain-smoking female boss, Shiano, in the hit TV series Camorra. Her life proved that in the Camorra, power is the only thing that matters, and it can be wielded by anyone cunning and ruthless enough to grab it, man or woman. Maria Licciardi rose from being the little one to the godmother, a queen who ruled from the shadows. Her reign proved that in the brutal world of the Naples, Camorra, a woman could be just as ambitious, just as strategic, and just as feared as any man. If you found this dive into the criminal underworld fascinating, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell for more deep dives into some of history's most notorious figures. Let us know in the comments what other criminal empires or figures you'd like us to tackle next.